How's it going, ladies and gentlemen? VuduVince here, and we're here in World of Warships. And what we're going to talk today is about that regularly occurring event where a team goes to one side and just leaves a flank completely open, leaving you with a very serious decision. That decision should be based upon what you're driving, and if you want to have the possibility of winning the game. This team, to be fair, I believe would have still won this game no matter what I had done. Whether I'd been with them or not, wouldn't have really mattered. We ended up winning the game. But what happened was they left A completely uncontested, and I made the decision, as I've made many times, to go and contest it. Now, I'm not going to believe that I can fight my way into a solo cap alone against multiple opponents and win. That's not what my intention was. So what I was doing was simply going down here to cause problems and draw bad guys out into the open. So the CV's already spotted some targets for us. Otago, Akazuki, Tirpitz, Massachusetts. So if you're going to do this kind of stuff, if you're going to try and run solo, or if you do run solo and you go, well, Voodoo Man, that's a tall order to go down here knowing that you're going to run into multiple boats. It is. It totally is. And if it's outside your skill set, don't do it. Just don't. If you want to try it, the worst thing that happens is you go back to the port. That's it. That's the worst thing that happens. You may not make some damage. And for the longest time during this game, I really thought that's what was going to happen for this game, was that I was going to just make crap damage, and I'd hold out on the side. My team would end up stomping on them anyway, but we'd win, but I really wouldn't do anything. So when you're going to go do this, and if you're fortunate enough to have the bad guys spotted, or as they appear to you, you want to develop a threat matrix. And you go, well, what the hell is a threat matrix? Well, that is essentially knowing your boat and knowing how it drives and how it operates, and understanding each threat as it appears and what it's capable of doing to you. What do you need to be worried about? Should you engage this target? Should you engage the next target that pops up? Should you engage the third target that should pop up? Should you engage this target until it does a certain thing and then change to another target? These are all things that you need to know, and the way to know them is to do a lot of shooting and to understand the aspects of the boats that you're going to run into. So we have Otago, Akazuki, Tirpitz, Massachusetts. Well, basic order to me of highest threat to lowest threat would be destroyers, cruisers, battleships. Destroyers are usually going to appear the closest. They have torpedoes, and they're the most nuisance to you and your team. They're the highest threat. Cruisers follow next because of their high rate of fire, typically larger guns. They're usually multi-armed with torpedoes and guns. Lower concealment, especially as a battleship guy. And all-round utility. Taking a cruiser off the field can sometimes be more important than taking a battleship off the field, and sometimes a destroyer is more important than getting a cruiser off the field, especially if they're well-driven, or if they're unusually strong within their tier, or if through the friendlies that you have left, you don't believe they're going to be able to tangle with that threat. Say you only have a couple destroyers left, and there's one big nasty cruiser or one battleship, knock out the cruiser. The cruiser's going to be the higher threat to the destroyers, whereas the destroyers could bum rush a battleship and kill him. So let's think about what we have. We have 4 vessels. We know we're going to be at A. We have Otago, good concealment, 203 8mm 8-inch guns, 10K torpedoes, hydroacoustic search, fighter planes, maneuverable, but he's thin. We can't overmatch him with these guns, but we can punch through and do citadel damages if he doesn't maneuver, if he makes a mistake and RNG is with us. Akazuki is the gun variant. A Katsuki is the torpedo variant. Both of them have about the same concealment. I think it's over 6 kilometers. I think it's like 6'3", 6'5", depending on if they're trained. It could be up to almost 7K. So then you have Massachusetts and Tirpitz. Masses and Tirpitzes are, you really don't know. There's a difference between the boats, and then there's a difference between the people that drive them. So typically at Tier 8, battleship players are going to be hit or miss. Some are very good, and some are not. And so it all depends. A Tirpitz at range is not necessarily a threat. He has bad dispersion. Now, he can get lucky, so you don't want to just give him free shots. But most of the time the dispersion's so bad that they just don't take shots, or if they do, they're ineffective. The Mass has better accuracy at range, and his secondaries can be very strong. Those boats with the same, say, average driver, the Massachusetts would be the more forgiving, the easier boat to drive. So both of those can be a high threat, especially to us with the gas gun. The gas gun's an odd duck. It's got only a single turret forward and a single turret aft. It has decent secondary range, decent AA guns. It's just a kind of a jack-of-all-trades boat and a weird kind of monster to drive at this tier. So my thought process was to push south until I was detected by bad guys, and then turn out and run and draw them to me out into open water away from the ACAP. Buy time for my team to capture C, kill off who they could, and come down south, hopefully, to help me, which they ended up just stomping on everybody up north and coming down and winning the game. So currently, if you can see where I'm at here on the map, what I tried to do is, we know that most bad guys are going to push in along, and I apologize about this stuff from the player being in the way, but they push in along the I and the H line here, and usually push through the center of A, because if anyone's parked about where I am, you're not exposed to gunfire, but it limits your visibility for ships coming that way. The Tirpitz ends up popping out and coming up this direction through the 4-5 line, but the rest of the vessels continue along the 1-2-3, which is fine. So if I am north of this island, that means that they have to push out further and further and further in order to continue to engage me, especially if I turn around and head back towards my side north of the map. So what we end up doing is we just push through here until we finally go, okay, we've drawn enough heat, let's get out of here. And we're looking to see who appears first. Graf Zeppelin continually tries to come in and mess with me, but to me, CV planes right now are kind of, most of the time, they're a nuisance at best. It depends on the driver, but most of the time, CV players are kind of just a pest. And there isn't really anything you can do about it. Just set your AA and keep maneuvering. So the CV spotting us, plus we had some people targeting us. I didn't want to continue to push in to where I couldn't see bad guys, but they could see me to get free shots with the CV planes. So I decided to go ahead and make my turn. I'm out here in open water. I have tons of room to maneuver. And that's one of the better things for battleships, is having the room to actually maneuver, and no islands or anything for a destroyer or a cruiser to sneak up on you from behind. So we're in a good position here. So we're going to target the enemy aircraft here and just continue to do our stuff. Those poor TA-152s. 190s. And anyway, so the Tirpitz pops up, and he starts throwing shells at us. Again, like I said, his dispersion's so bad that he usually needs to close to, 10 to 12K before you really have to start being worried about it. He'll get some hits on you. He will do some damage, but again, it's really just RNG helping him or not. So we're angled off from him, so we're doing pretty well there. We throw some rounds at him, and we're looking for the rest of those boats. So the Otago pops out, followed by the Massachusetts, and then the Akatsuki ends up popping out as well. Now, this is one of those deals where, okay, the threat matrix comes into play. Well, we have an Otago. He was lit. We have an Akatsuki, and he's lit. So what do you shoot first? Well, you don't want to let a destroyer get free damage. You don't just want to let him do that. But at the same time, if you have longer reload and things, and you have a cruiser behind him, it's more important to shoot the cruiser. You'll have to make these decisions on your own. But to me, what I want to do is throw some rounds to Akatsuki and push him back out of range. He doesn't want to take any hits if he can avoid it, because destroyers don't. I mean, I wouldn't want to. Nobody does in a destroyer. So I want to throw some rounds at him to just say, hey, you're not going to just park right there and just throw rounds at me. Now, if he wants to smoke and do that stuff, that's fine too. But the Aki doesn't end up doing that. Because at this point, what I would have done if I was the Aki was let the Otago get up here and start spotting, and I would have smoked and started laying rounds on me, but the Aki doesn't do that. So currently, the Otago is not lit. The Massachusetts is its range. Akatsuki is the greatest threat. So I engage him. So I put some salvos on him, and he ends up turning out and moving away, which is fine. Plus, I had the CV kind of close to me as well, We put a little bit of damage. And one of the things, too, is that any damage that you can land early on a DD, especially if you can half health him or get him to a quarter health, that makes him play a lot more passively and makes it easy for your team to kill him. So, again, Massachusetts throwing some rounds. Otago reappears. So, because the Aki's moving away outside detectability, the Otago becomes the next greater target. He's easier to hit due to dispersion. He's easier to kill due to my penetration and whatnot. And he's the greatest threat to me currently. As you'll notice, we're letting our fires burn. You should, unless you get 2, then a repair party's in order. This is a poorly trained commander. I think he was like, I say poorly trained. He was a 13 or 14 point commander, I believe, from my Alsace before I had Republic. And we're using the heal in order to counter the fires, so that when we get to that point, we've got some health back. Turpus is still, he's moving into B. He's not really, it's not much I can do about him. Torpedo planes come in and throw some torps. We end up taking a torp, but no flooding. We end up taking another. He cross fires us, and I take one on the torpedo protection. Again, no flooding, which was good for us. And we're just really just drawing a lot of fire, and we're just moving away from them, constantly pulling them to us. And as you can tell, they really didn't want to leave A. They didn't want to push out into open water against me, but they weren't moving to B either. So this is the deal of, most of the time, when you're playing, you don't want to have everyone looking at you. But in this instance, that's exactly what I want. If they engage my friendlies, then I can get free shots. And if they engage me, then my friends get free shots. Right now, they do not want to push out. The Aki immediately gave up on attempting to attack me. I, as an Akazuki guy, would have immediately came out here, smoked, and shot me to ribbons. The Otago also pulls back. The Massachusetts doesn't want to push out from the islands, which was very bizarre to me, but I'm not going to look a gift horse in the mouth. So I let them keep doing their business. So at some point, as you're moving away, kiting away, you got to make the decision to come back, because you're playing this game. You know, you're like, all right, I'm going to come over here and I'm going to mess with you a little bit, and then I'm going to run away, and then I'm going to come back, and I'm going to run away, and I'm going to come back. And you have to play that game as you're kiting. So as I continue to move away, I finally make the decision to turn about here. And finally, the Otago, the Mass, decide to come on out into open water. They're seeing that the game's not going well, that they need to come out here and do something. But again, they're focused on me. Now, if they had decided to turn into B and start fighting up there, then that would have given me the free shots I want. But if they stay shooting me, again, that's fine. Either way that they do is working for me. Either I'm helping the team, or they're helping me, the bad guys, by letting me shoot them. Easier. So we continue to throw rounds to Otago. He's the closest to us. He's the greatest threat. Keeping in mind that Massachusetts is behind him, we're keeping our angle on. And as you'll notice, for most of my shots, I'm not shooting the forward guns, just the aft guns, because you need to expose so much side to shoot with your front guns that typically you take a lot of extra damage to do it. And it's just not worth it. So it's easier in the mission set that we're doing here to just keep throwing rounds from here. Now, in this instance, I was able to turn. This is where I go ahead and make my turn and start my attack. They're in open water. There's nowhere for them to go. I'm in open water. It's time to go ahead and press the advantage. Plus, my team is stomping on them. We're well into halfway through the game. None of my friends have died on my team, and over half their team is dead. So we're going to go ahead and press our attack. So we end up landing at a Citadel on the Otago. And the last of the bad guys are pretty much fighting at B, and I've got these two guys out in the open water. Massachusetts continues to press, but at this point, my team looks like they pretty well have it in the bag, so I'm going to continue to be that focal point for the bad guys out here in open water. So I'm going to keep shooting at the Otago, because to me, that Otago is the greater threat, and he's the easier one to kill. The Mass, I'm going to kill one way or the other, either through a ram, or I'll outmaneuver him and shoot him, or my friends will end up hitting him. And at this moment, I'm really not taking a lot of secondary fire from him. For whatever reason, this guy didn't have his boat set, or his commander was new, or something, and it really just wasn't a very threatening Massachusetts. So we end up disabling one of his front guns, and as you'll notice again, we're just focusing on shooting at him with the front gun. We're not trying to get the second guns on, because we'll expose too much side, and that's just too dangerous against a Mass at this range. He turns out, which is fine, and what we want to do is we don't want to immediately turn to give him broadside. He's going to push past our side. The aft turret is going to have a chance to fire. So what we want to do is when we make that first shot, we land an extremely good deal, 11,600. He's taking damage from multiple angles here. And what we want to do is maintain our angle to his guns right now And as he continues to press, the aft guns are going to get on. But Mogami comes in and slips the kill right as we're going to get him. Happens. Now, Fantastique Atago. I set secondary guns on Fantastique. That way, he's maneuvering kind of away from my secondary guns while I focus on what I would see as the greater threat currently, which is Atago. With the Atago out of the way, I can maneuver however I want and not be afraid of taking citadels from these 8-inch guns. So, secondary guns are working. Fantastique firing. Here comes torps from the Atago because we're in range. Finally get another citadel on the Atago and kill him. We end up taking 2 torps here, which really, really hurt us. And I think they're going to be from the... They're probably from the Atago. And there's a very good chance I would have died right here, but our team ends up capping out and winning, which is good. I'm glad my team did that. And so a game where for most of it I was under 10,000 hit points of damage, I end up ending the game out with 72,200. Not a bad game at all, especially one that I was assuming that I was going to die over on that flank, which was my intention. That's a personal preference of what I do, and that's how I like to play the game. There are times where I'm like, I'm not going over that flank because I know what happens over there, and I'm not doing it. I'm going to go over here and get damage. In this instance, I went, somebody's got to go to this side. Someone has to deter bad guys. Now, if there's no bad guys there, you take a cap for free, essentially, or drive off a cruiser or something, or a single battleship. You've pulled yourself out of the fight. You've capped a point, and you may take a ship off the board, but it's going to be a while for you to get back in the engagement. So you have to weigh it out to see how it benefits you and how it benefits the team. But there's a lot of aspects that go on in each of these games, but I would hope that this has helped some folks out. If it has, let me know. Give me a thumbs up. If you didn't like the video, give me a thumbs down. I don't much care. And this is going to be more along the lines of what the content should be. And I'm going to redo my shooting videos. I have a couple of older shooting videos that simplify the shooting in this game to easy numbers with no math, no BS. It's relatively simple. And this is what I hope to start producing for you guys, for the regular players in the game who are getting on here in the weekends, or for a more experienced player who goes, I had no idea that was even a thing. I didn't think about that from that perspective. And you use these little items that you learn from different people, and you put them in a toolbox. And you use those things as you need to, as they develop, and you go, oh, now I know what you're talking about. Okay, if I click this together, I can do this, and it works. So, hope that y'all enjoyed this. This was an older video, and the Gascon is an odd duck. You don't see them very often, and usually they're not very well driven. I drive mine relatively well, but again, it's an oddball, and it doesn't give you a lot of opportunity. It's not a very user-friendly boat. I wouldn't run out and buy one. If you get one, and you need some tips on it or something like that, please let me know. My Discord's going to be down in the description. It's not some kind of big hangout where everybody shows up, but if you want some tips or tricks on an individual boat, or just want to chat, hit me up. And, well, I think that sums it up pretty nicely. I'll catch you guys next time. Focused on you, because if you look and see, get down from there. Uh-huh. Stop it. If you... This is what I was yelling at. Jeffrey. You say hi to everybody? Get out of here. Anyway.